In a world defined by borders, nations, and cultures, the movement of people often tells a powerful story, a story of hope, fear, survival, and the search for a better life. But for many, crossing these lines isn't just about finding a new home, it's about facing harsh realities and policies that push them back, sometimes to places they'd rather not return. In this video, we explore a difficult and sensitive subject: countries where Muslim refugees or immigrants face forced returns to their homeland, whether it's due to political climates, religious pressures, or national security concerns. These nations have strict policies that impact the lives of many seeking refuge and safety. From Europe to the Middle East, from Asia to Africa, these countries shape the destiny of those fleeing conflict and oppression. Some countries enforce immigration laws that make it nearly impossible for Muslims to settle permanently. Others face complex geopolitical dynamics that leave them with limited options. Join us as we take a closer look at the 10 countries that have controversial policies and practices that compel certain groups like Muslims to return to their homeland. Each country has its own reasons, laws, and challenges that contribute to the tough decisions millions of people must make. Let's dive deeper into the world of migration, policy, and the struggles of refugees as we explore these complex issues.
Yemen, located on the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, has been embroiled in a brutal civil war since 2014. The ongoing conflict has led to one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, with millions of people facing food insecurity, lack of health care, and devastating displacement. In this context, the issue of forced repatriation is less about policy and more about the grim realities on the ground. Many Yemenis, especially Muslims who sought refuge in other countries, face insurmountable challenges in returning home due to the war and lack of security. Yemen's fractured political landscape and lack of stable governance make returning home incredibly difficult. While the international community continues to provide aid, the prospects for rebuilding a life in a war-torn country are bleak for many Yemenis abroad. For Muslims fleeing the violence, the decision to return is fraught with uncertainty, with no clear support systems in place for repatriation. As the birthplace of Islam and the home of the two holiest cities in Islam, Mecca and Medina, Saudi Arabia is at the heart of the Muslim world. The kingdom operates under Sharia law, and this strict adherence to Islamic law shapes every aspect of life in the country. Saudi Arabia's laws around apostasy leaving Islam are among the strictest in the world. In fact, apostasy is considered a hudud crime, which carries the death penalty in the kingdom. This creates a climate of pressure for Muslims to conform to traditional Islamic practices. For those living in Saudi Arabia, deviating from the faith or criticizing the government can have severe consequences, which is why some Muslims feel compelled to stay within the fold of Islam, even if they question their beliefs. Saudi Arabia's position as a global religious and economic powerhouse also makes it a central figure in shaping the broader Muslim world, with its policies influencing both the faithful and those seeking to practice their faith differently. Myanmar's treatment of its Muslim minority, particularly the Rohingya, has garnered international attention for all the wrong reasons. The Rohingya have faced decades of systemic discrimination, statelessness, and violent persecution, leading to what many international observers label as ethnic cleansing. For the Rohingya Muslims, returning to Myanmar is not just about legal status, it's about survival. Many have fled to neighboring countries like Bangladesh, seeking refuge from violence and human rights abuses. But the government of Myanmar has never recognized the Rohingya as one of its official ethnic groups, leaving them stateless and without rights. In Myanmar, the Rohingya are caught in a cruel paradox. They cannot return home because it is not safe, but they also face challenges in resettling elsewhere due to their status as refugees. The international community continues to call for reform, but for now, the plight of the Rohingya remains one of the most pressing humanitarian crises of our time. The situation of the Uyghur Muslims in China's Xinjiang region is another example of forced return policies that have sparked global outrage. Over 1 million Uyghur Muslims have been detained in what the Chinese government refers to as re-education camps, part of a broader campaign to suppress the ethnic and religious identity of this Muslim minority. China has justified its actions as a means to combat extremism and maintain national security, but critics argue that these measures amount to genocide. The Chinese government has pressured countries around the world to repatriate Uyghurs who have fled, often citing the need to maintain social stability. For the Uyghurs who escape, their return to China means facing imprisonment, forced labor, and harsh conditions. Their struggle highlights the broader challenges faced by Muslims fleeing persecution in regions where national security concerns trump human rights. India, a country with a rich history of religious diversity, has been increasingly criticized for its treatment of Muslims. Particularly, the government's handling of the Rohingya refugees has drawn international condemnation. India has been known to deport Rohingya Muslims back to Myanmar, despite their well-documented persecution there. At the same time, India has implemented the Citizenship Amendment Act (CA), which offers a pathway to citizenship for refugees from neighboring countries except for Muslims. Critics argue that the CA undermines the country's secular constitution and discriminates against Muslims. The government justifies the CA as a measure to protect persecuted religious minorities, but this has fueled concerns about rising Islamophobia and marginalization of India's Muslim community. With tensions over regional security, particularly with Pakistan, India's domestic policies on Muslims have been shaped by both historical and geopolitical concerns. As we've seen today, the intersection of borders, immigration policies, and the realities faced by refugees, particularly Muslims, is a complex and often heartbreaking issue. From countries like Saudi Arabia and Myanmar to India and China, the policies and practices surrounding migration are deeply influenced by historical tensions, national security concerns, and cultural preservation. While the world continues to grapple with the challenges of migration and refugee crises, one thing remains clear. For many, the search for safety, dignity, and hope often crosses boundaries that are not easily overcome. It's up to the international community, as well as the individuals within these nations, to find a balance between national security and human compassion. No matter where we stand on the geopolitical spectrum, the lives of those affected by these policies deserve our empathy and understanding. Thank you for joining us in this important exploration. If you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts below. What do you think needs to change in global migration policies? How can we create a world that welcomes diversity and supports the most vulnerable? Until next time, stay informed, stay compassionate, and see you in our next video.